Go back to your shrine, guardian, growled Charlie through Mamaroo's paw. My shrine? He scoffed in response. You are a fool, nameless one. This house has been anointed with the blessings of the most powerful gods that ever walked this earth. I was made to protect holy places. What do you think this house has become? The Nephilim weren't gods, beast. Luke glared from the door. Put him down if you know what's good for you. Mamaroo's blood dripped down from the wound on his shoulder, spattering the floor beside me. Charlie yanked his claws out, ripping wider the gash. Mamaroo only chuckled. Of course they were gods. They were gods the same way mothers are to their children. They could have ended humanity, but they chose instead to educate and nurture. They were the only gods with the blessed gift of mortality. They cherished their time and used it wisely. His massive head turned to Luke. If your father hadn't feared them so and wiped them from the earth, imagine how humanity could have been. He released Charlie's face and quickly grabbed his throat. Charlie struggled in his grip. If this is a holy place, where is your god? Charlie's black, oppressive form thrashed futilely. What are gods even? They are creators, supreme beings, a moral compass and a divine protector. Moira has life in her womb. She has only wished to protect, even at the risk of her own life, even for you. She offered you what little peace she had in exchange for the trauma you bequeathed. You have forgotten yourself. You were here before even time, and yet you've only wrought fear and destruction. She is more a god now, as a soft and frail human, than you are with all your omnipotence. Has she not been through enough? Release her from your chaos. Charlie went still and returned to his human form. His shame-filled eyes drifted down to me, still cowering under Mamaroo's massive blue body. Slowly, Mamaroo let go of Charlie. Will you be calm now? Yes. Will you apologize? Yes. Moira. He looked at me with such sadness. I didn't hear the rest of whatever he said because pain became all I knew. The world went dark at the edges as agony gripped my belly. Hell was burning me from the inside out and trying to climb its way forcefully from my uterus. I grabbed at the life and begged it to stay. I could hear shouting, but it was muffled. Someone scooped me up. Moira. Kay. Breathe. Hospital. I could only guess they were taking me to the ER. I couldn't afford that kind of doctor visit, but before I could say anything, I succumbed to oblivion. When I awoke, it was to the steady beeping of a heart monitor. Someone was holding my hand. It took my eyes a minute to adjust to the white of the hospital room. Moima, wake up, Rory chirped from somewhere nearby. Oh, thank God. Moira, sweetheart, you gave us all a scare. Miss Judy stood at the foot of my bed. Rory struggled in her arms, reaching for me. Where's Mamaroo? I croaked, my throat burned with the fury of 1,000 suns. Oh, don't worry about that, old bear. Miss Judy chuckled. He got all stitched up and went back to your house to clean up. It's a good thing he was driving by when that dog got in. Dog? The hand clasping mine shifted. Luke cleared his throat from the seat beside me. Yeah, the feral dog that got in the house. The one that attacked you. He lifted an eyebrow and gave me a knowing look. Oh, the dog. Why did my throat ache so? A buxom nurse and gray-haired doctor sauntered into my room and fidgeted with the monitors and IV bags attached to my sore body. Try not to talk too much, young lady, the nurse chided. You were screaming in your sleep for quite a while. I imagine your throat is raw. She poured a glass of water from the tan plastic pitcher nearby and handed it to me. Drink up. While I sucked down the icy water to soothe the burning desert that was currently ravaging my throat, the doctor pushed up his glasses and cleared his voice. He explained that while I had been dangerously close to losing my child from the amount of stress I had been placing on myself, we would both be fine. I breathed a great sigh of relief. I guess I finally had my answer. No matter how the child came to be, or who he grew into. I desperately loved the tiny life. I was to stay in the hospital for the rest of the night to ensure that everything was back to normal and could go home the next morning. He informed me I needed to improve my diet, lower my stress, and be on bed rest for the next month. A month? I gaped at him. Yes, a full month. Then I want you back here and we'll decide if you need to continue bed rest or not. He and the nurse both nodded and marched from the room. I felt hot tears well up in my eyes. I don't have time for a month of bed rest. I have to take care of Rory, and I have to find a job. I can't afford however much the bill for all this will be. As I began to hyperventilate, Luke scoffed next to me. A job? He snorted. Miss Judy gave him a disapproving glare as she set Rory on my bed. Finally free, Rory threw himself into my arms and nuzzled up against me. I'll run out of money eventually. There's going to be another mouth to feed, and I can barely afford to feed us. You have no need for a job. Ask for anything, and it is yours. Do you really think I would let the mother of my child wither away and rot? You have done enough, Luke. I can't ask for any more. You could start by furnishing that house of hers, Miss Judy snidely told Luke. There was nothing but a few chairs when we were all there for Halloween. Done. Luke nodded his head. You could get her a car so she's not walking everywhere. That probably didn't. Miss Judy, I don't need anything from him. I can get a job and take care of myself. You will do no such thing, Luke said curtly. You don't like accepting help, but you'd offer the shirt off your back if you saw someone in need. You won't get your way. Let someone take care of you for a change. It's really nothing. He shrugged. His arrogance pissed me off. I didn't need some fallen angel telling me what to do. We had been just fine before he came around, hadn't we? I thought to the first time we had met. How many times had he rescued me from Charlie? At the same time, it was his fault I was nearly smited. But that had also been my choice as well. It was so frustrating. Miss Judy sat on the edge of my bed and stroked my hair. You can't just let a man knock you up and turn him away when he tries to take care of you, sweetheart. Bile rose in my throat as horrible flashes of that night bubbled to the surface of my thoughts. If only it had been Luke. I arrived home the next day to find my home a mess of intriguing workers. Mamoru, with his arm bandaged and in a sling, was shouting orders at strange creatures in my yard. Tiny little beings the size of toddlers, all wearing kabuki masks, ran here and there. Some carried items of furniture more than twice their size, as though it weighed nothing. A large moving truck sat in the driveway, several human-looking men bringing boxes and furniture out and onto the lawn. One tiny being, adorned with a fox mask, spotted us and let out a shrill cry. "She's back!" The tiny one scattered and disappeared. Mamoru turned and smiled as he walked toward us. Luke helped me out of his SUV and began to unbuckle Rory from his car seat in the back. "You're a little earlier than I expected. We're almost done, too." I looked at him suspiciously. "Some of it's from Luke, some is from the town. Miss Judy went out last night and did a small collection for you. It may be a small town, but we take care of our own." Charlie was nowhere to be seen when we entered the house. I stopped and stared in disbelief. Tears flooded my eyes, and I may have gotten a little choked up. Rugs on the floor, a couch and TV, and an overflowing toy box now accompanied my crimson chair. They had turned my house into a home. Each room was now furnished, and the house felt warm and inviting for the first time. The fridge was filled to the brim with casseroles and lasagnas. Little cards wishing me well covered the countertops. Human kindness can truly overcome even the direst of circumstances. Luke stayed by the truck talking to the men as they finished unloading a bed frame. I recognized one of the men as the raven-headed demon butler from Halloween. He waved and smiled. "I have something special for you," said Mamoru while offering me a beautiful lacquered box. He smiled nervously as he lifted the lid. Carefully stacked inside were delicate papers the width of $1, with kanji written down them. These are ofuda. They are to help you with Charlie. When he's at his worst, these will protect you and the little ones. The large man blushed. I made them myself. Thank you, Mamoru. I carefully hugged him, doing my best to avoid his injury. He laughed and gently squeezed me back. After all the work was done, I pulled out several casseroles and was quickly made to go sit down. Mamoru, will you push the table half out the door? He gave me a curious look. Luke and his men can't come inside the house. I wanted to thank them by feeding them. If we push the table out, we can all eat together. You too. He stared at me for a minute, threw his head back and let loose with a jovial laugh. You, my dear, never cease to amaze me. You do know we don't actually need to eat human food, right? I will accept nonetheless. What about the little ones? I asked. Won't they join us? I heard soft, excited giggles from every corner of the room. One by one, the tiny beings appeared. Rory let out a shriek of delight and yelled, "Found you!" and grasped at one, who in turn stuck its tongue out and hid behind the couch. Round and round Rory chased him. Those are shrine spirits, similar to myself. When I wandered the new world, after my god left me, I found many that were also abandoned. They wished to also help the kind mother of Griffin Drive. A small voice beside me spoke up. It is always those with so little that give the most. You have given much. We have been watching you, sweet Moira. Furry ears twitched behind the mask, and a fox-like tail thumped the floor behind it. Until you are well, we shall help out around the house. It will be good to be of use again. That night there was much laughter and merrymaking at the dinner table. Charlie remained absent. The weeks went by in a blur. The doctor released me from bed rest, and my small celestial helpers returned to their home in the forest with Mamoru. Under his watchful eye, they had managed the house and exhausted a playful Rory. Charlie had yet to show his face, though I sometimes felt him in the dark corner of the living room. The quiet house felt strange. Under Luke's insistence, Rory had been placed in preschool during the day, leaving me to myself for the first time in weeks. Charlie, come out, please. Charlie, come out wherever you are, I sang. No, came his melancholy voice from the direction of his favorite chair. There you are. I waddled over to him, my swollen belly now obvious in its nature. Leave me be, Moira. We should talk. Show yourself. He grumpily smoked into existence. His eyes were dark and lined with heavy purple bags. His hands gripped the arms of the chair as if he feared floating away. His face was sallow and puckered. Perspiration lined his knitted brow. Are you okay? Do I look okay? He snarked through gritted teeth. What's wrong? Do you have one of those talismans on you? The Ofuda? Yes. I held up the cream paper. He snarled and grimaced away from me. Is it hurting you? Not yet. Go upstairs, Moira. Eyes filled with malevolent need, his words came out in heavy pants. Go. I can't control it anymore. As I ran from him, the house began to shake and groan. I slammed the door to the stairs and leaned against it. Loud crashes and banging went on the other side of the door. He screamed in agony, and the house swallowed his cries. He thrashed in pain somewhere down the hall. Glass shattered and tinkled to the floor. Moira, give me your fear. Charlie's voice seeped up from the crack at the bottom of the door. The door sizzled as he bucked against it. Give it to me. Make the pain stop. Please, Moira. It hurts so much, he begged. I slowly opened the door and came face to face with the monster that was once Charlie. His eyes were black, bottomless pits, accented by the bruise-like rings around them. His mouth was partially opened, and his breath stank of sulfur. Long, two sharp teeth jutted from his gums haphazardly like broken glass. Yellowish, putrid saliva dripped from them, running up his face and splattering the floor. He turned his head 180 degrees, so his face was righted while his body still hung suspended from the ceiling. I wet myself, although it could have had something to do with the growing child pressing against my bladder. "You smell delightful. Give it to me. Give yourself to—" I calmly placed the ofuda against his forehead. He screeched like a dying animal and flew back from me. "Remember, Charlie! Remember who you are!" I yelled and slammed the door. I cried as I listened to him wail in pain and betrayal. Mamoru had told me it would be hard to not succumb to Charlie's withdrawals. It broke my heart to hear him sob. Maybe if I just gave him a little to help with the pain, so he wasn't going completely cold turkey. Again, I creaked the door open. No, Moira, go back. I've lasted this long. The temptation is too strong now that we are alone. He whimpered, his head in his hands, black tears leaking from between his fingers. I stayed in the stairway and sang softly to him. It helped Rory when he was sick or in pain. Maybe it could help my supernatural addict. Charlie was shivering, curled up in his chair when Luke arrived with Rory. Little Rory ran to Charlie, consumed with worry. "Chowie sick? Moima, Chowie hurting." Time stopped for me then. I heard Luke scream for Rory to get back as I pushed my ballooning body from the bottom step and tried to run to him. My legs felt like lead and jelly. I watched helplessly as Charlie's eyes widened and he reached for my brother, his clawed hand latching onto Rory's downy curls. Horror filled Charlie's blackened sockets. He couldn't help himself as he yanked Rory to him. "No!" Rory flicked Charlie's forehead with his chubby baby fingers. "Don't wike it," he said calmly as he put both little hands on either side of Charlie's face. "Bad Chowie." I've never been so proud of my little brother as I watched as he headbutted Charlie in the nose. Charlie burst out in a strange cacophony of laughter and hugged Rory to him. "Yes, my strange tiny friend. Chowie was bad. Thank you for waking me up." Rory patted Charlie softly. I was almost to my third trimester the day Charlie tentatively stood at the front door, his feet firmly and painlessly planted to the ground for the first time in centuries. He looked nervously to Luke, grinning outside. I had kept Rory home from preschool that day. Mamoru and the spirits waited with welcoming smiles in the yard. "Like this, Chowie." Rory reached up and grabbed Charlie's hand and put one small foot over the threshold. We all let out a collective breath after he stepped through safely. He took a deep breath of the fresh, cold air of the perfect winter morning and turned to me slowly. "Moira, I don't know how to thank you." He turned to those gathered there for him. "All of you." He turned back and pulled me through the door, held me close for a minute, and then kissed my cheek. "I will never, for the rest of eternity, forget your kindness." "Will you come visit?" I asked, and the boy in my womb kicked at Charlie's hand. He looked at me and then at the house. "I never want to see this fucking house ever again, but you can visit me." He smiled, the first of what I hoped would be many carefree smiles. In a flash of smoke and a rustle of wings, both Charlie and Luke disappeared from the porch. Mamoru and his rowdy family left a little while later. For the first time in just over 6 months, Rory and I found ourselves truly alone. The next few days were filled with occasional bouts of tears from both myself and Rory. I had never figured I'd miss Charlie's sometimes overbearing presence. My new phone chirped frequently with messages from Luke of the two powerful men's adventures into the modern world. My favorite was the message from Charlie, professing his newfound love of bubble tea. One night, as I put Rory to bed in his very own big boy room, I heard the front door announce the arrival of a visitor with its loud creak. "Hello? Mama-roo?" I was met with a deafening silence. I penguin waddled down the hallway, hoping perhaps the wind had blown open the door. I was knocked to the floor by a painful blow to my jaw. "Hello, you little whore. Long time no see." John had found us. Every part of me screamed to run. Rory was in his room. If I ran to him, we'd be trapped. If I escaped the house, that meant leaving Rory behind. That was something I refused to do. I attempted to get up, but received a boot to the chest. John's eyes widened when he saw my belly. "You little fucking whore. How far along are you?" His boot pushed at me with every syllable. "That mine?" I refused to look at him. How would I get out of this? Charlie and Luke were both gone. My phone sat on the little end table behind John. If I could just reach it. "Answer me, bitch!" I slapped at his foot, and the moment he became unbalanced, I tried to lunge for my phone. He snatched it from the table and waved it in my face. "This what you looking for?" he sneered. "Gonna call your boyfriends to come rescue you? Do you have any idea how long I had to wait to get you alone?" He threw it to the ground and smashed it with the heel of his scuffed work boot. "You and your cunt of a mother. She tried to leave me too, you know. Your fucking uncle had her all worked up, saying I was dangerous and shit." He ran his fingers over his buzz cut and paced the room. "You ruined my life." The soft sound of padded feet pitter-pattered close by. A small hand touched my shoulder. "Mistress," a gentle voice whispered in my ear. "I shall send the others for Mama-roo. You are not alone." "No!" I hissed quietly under my breath, keeping an eye on John as he became a little more frantic in his pacing. "Get Rory out of here. Hide him." John spun around and angrily pointed at me. His rage was palpable. "I did my job and reported you for kidnapping my son." He paused and looked around for a minute. "Of course, I wasn't allowed on the case. Everything was going well. Then they found your goddamn diary. You fucking bitch, what did you write?" Spittle flew from his fury-filled words. "They opened up an investigation into your cunt mother's death. It was easy enough to drug her and get her in the bathtub. I don't even remember her scratching me while I cut open her wrists. They found my skin under her nails. They wanted to charge me with murder." He was rambling now, punctuating every other word with a death glare. "I shall not leave you, mistress." I felt warmth from the tiny body. More tiny paws scuffled down the hallway and into Rory's room. The door shut quickly and quietly while my little guardian squeezed my shoulder in comfort. The door didn't shut quietly enough. John's head whipped around to look down the hallway. He gave me one more suspicious glare and began to stomp in the direction of Rory. I moved quickly for a skinny 18-year-old with a 6+ month swell. My child was going to be a big one if the size of his current room was any indication. I beat John to the door and did my best to block his entry. He pulled his fist back and slammed it into my womb. "This world doesn't need another stupid bitch whore anyways," he growled. I crumpled to the floor as he pulled his foot back and swung it toward my face. Crack! My little guardian became visible. She had caught John's boot to her mask. It cracked in half and shattered to the floor. Her fox tail fluffed, hackles raised along her neck. "You shall hurt my mistress no more!" Blue flames appeared above the little white paws. "What the fuck is that?" John pulled a gun from his waistband and aimed it at her as the door behind us swung open. Rory stood there. Click. John pulled back the slide. The spirits in the room who had been opening the bedroom window turned in unison and ran toward Rory. "Kit!" he yelled and barreled toward her, eyes full of fear. Several things happened at once. The little fox spun and threw her flames toward Rory. The blue light encapsulated him, and he slammed into the wall, out of harm's way. As she spun, her body crackled and grew. Her soft, fluffy tail split into 9, and her gentle features turned feral. She let out a roar and charged at John. The gun went off with a deafening boom, and the house shook with the terrifying screams sounding outside the windows. Rory fell limply into my lap, unconscious. Kit, the sweet fox spirit, caught the bullet between her eyes and crashed to the floor, taking John down with her. "No!" a chorus of voices cried. "Go! Get Mama Roo!" I shouted. All hell broke loose outside the house. The floor vibrated with the violence of the beings trying to get in. The house groaned in pain. Rory was still breathing. He had a goose egg forming on his head, but he was alive. Kit didn't move as John roughly shoved her off of him. He was on me in seconds. His harsh fingers tangled in my hair and pulled me down the hallway. The more I struggled, the harder he yanked. Some of my hair was ripped from my scalp as I clawed at his hands. As we passed into the living room, I caught a glimpse of a flock of ravens pummeling the house with their black bodies. They cawed and screamed in effort. Kit's body glowed softly with her blue flame. Little blue embers floated up from her prone form and flickered out of existence. "Do you know how hard it is to crack a steering rack so it looks natural?" John leaned down and spat in my face. I swung at him as hard as I could, but he blocked it and slapped me in return. He pulled my head back roughly with my hair. "Or how hard it is to puncture a brake line? I knew your stupid uncle would come running if I told him you were hurt. I knew he'd speed through the curvy mountain roads." "What?" No, it wasn't possible. He had it coming. He grabbed my mouth with his calloused hand. "He tried to get your mother to leave me." Tears streamed down my face. Suddenly, John was thrown off of me by another small spirit. This one wore a bunny mask. A third tended to Rory as it sobbed over Kit. The bunny pounced John and slapped an ophida to his face. Nothing happened. The brave spirit gripped John's collar firmly and punched at him with the talisman as John flailed. The masked face turned toward me, black eyes filled with fear. "It's not working!" "That monster," I pushed myself to my feet, "is human." John threw the bunny off of him and charged at me again. He hadn't noticed yet, but the gun was between us. The house shuddered with the efforts of my raven-headed friend outside. I planted my feet and lowered my shoulder. John's abdomen collided into me. Wrapping my arms around his waist and locking my wrists together, I thrust upward and back. We crashed to the floor, John's face slamming into the hardwood. He rolled over and kicked my belly. The child inside danced to the side, painfully squishing my kidney. He rose and sat on my chest and ravaged my face with his fists. "Charlie!" screamed Rory so loud it drowned out the cacophony of noises outside. The front door splintered into oblivion as Mama Roo crashed through, blue body seething in rage. Kit growled above us, bloody foam dripping off her snarling muzzle. The world went black, and I was surrounded in warmth. "My sweet Moira," said a soft, nearly forgotten voice, strong and gentle. Golden, glowing arms scooped me up and held me close. John screamed somewhere in the dark. "I'm sorry I left you all alone. I thought your mother was stronger." The ghostly apparition of my beloved Uncle Roar carried me through the house, past the violently swirling lights surrounding John. Everything moved slowly. Mama Roo was suspended in the air, mid-pounce, tusked mouth opened wide, snapping at John. Charlie was a whirl of furious galaxies wrapped tightly around John, pinning his arms to his side. Uncle Roar sidestepped the overturned couch and pulverized door and took me out into the night outside the house. I promised him I'd get him out. Uncle Roar pushed my blood-soaked hair from my face. Luke was in full fallen angel form, singed wings spread wide, casting bright light throughout the dark night. Ravens flew above him, battering the eaves of the house. Shrine spirits peppered the yard, hands stretched out toward the house, raw power flowing from them. Thank you, little Mo, for keeping my promise. Uncle Roar set me down, kissed my forehead, and smiled as he disappeared in a burst of sparkling light. The world caught up to me as Bunny crashed through a window, Rory riding his back. The house screamed under the barrage. Charlie's baritone boomed from the quivering house. You would dare harm the friend of both the heavens and hell? He cackled demonically. Let me show you true fear. John's screams pierced through the chaos as blue flashing lights and sirens flew up Griffin Drive. The gray house of Griffin Drive had fallen and crumbled to dust in the aftermath of the war that had taken place inside. The police were able to dig John out of the rubble and promptly sent him to a prison psych ward. He kept screaming about monsters and demons pulling his limbs off and beating him with them. Clearly, he's insane. Luke and Charlie built a huge white house with a sage green roof at the end of the road. It has plenty of room for guests. It's also free of Nephilim script. I asked Charlie how he had known we were in trouble. He looked at me in surprise. Rory summoned me. Turns out, if you know the true name of a nameless one, the name they keep secreted away in their heart of hearts, they can be summoned. Charlie had never had a name before Rory gave him one. He said he wanted to be the being little Rory thought he was. And so he became Charlie, the watcher of Griffin Drive, protector and best friend to a small and feisty human boy. I was put on bed rest for the remainder of my pregnancy. My face healed quickly with a single touch from Charlie's gentle hand. We asked the police about the charges of kidnapping against me and the warrant for my arrest. As far as we see it, you ran away with your little brother in fear for your lives. Then some shit happened. He shrugged. Far as I know, Moira Shepherd and Rory Kincaid are still in the wind. He winked. If you ever see him, let us know. We probably ought to give her some kind of award for ridding the department of a bad egg. A few quick months later, I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy with hair the color of sunshine, my nose and mouth, and beautiful jet black eyes that you could see the endless expanse of the universe in. Luke charged out of my delivery room screaming, Charlie! What the fuck? My sweet son is something this world has never seen.